Hey fam, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications. Newly elected House of Representatives, of course, run by Democrats, is the most diverse in history. Now, the Congressional Black Caucus, they, of course, also have 2 senators and 53 House members. But a report last year by Spencer Overton's Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies found that the staff of the last Congress was not as diverse as the members themselves. In fact, if you looked at, really, on the Senate side, you had more black folks in key positions on the Republican side than all of those damn white senators. All right, so Spencer, now, of course, it was also last year when Senator Chuck Schumer said, oh, we're going to have the Rooney Rule. Yeah. And that was also interesting. Because,
but let's go back to why that happened, right? Like you in New York and your conversation with him.
Well, but now before that, we had you on the show. We were talking about it and pushing it. So I gave the keynote speech to the Black and Puerto Rican legislators in Albany. And I made it perfectly known. I'm about to get in that ass on the lack of black staffers. And so they already told me that Schumer had to go and he wasn't going to be there for the speech. So I'm sitting there and I'm at the table, and then Schumer comes up, and what comes out of his mouth? So I want to let y'all know, we going to have a Rooney Rule in the Senate. I'm sitting there going like, Somebody said he about to get in your ass if you don't. But all of a sudden, he announced the Rooney Rule. But I interviewed him after, like, okay, what's up with that? But on the House side, so the same thing. Democrats take control, which means staff. Committee staff, all these new jobs open up. What are we looking like?
Well, you know, we're looking at about 300 new top spots. So there are a couple things that happen. Number one, the Democrats got twice as many committee spots as a whole staff spots because they came into the majority, right? And then there's this other piece where you have about 100 new members, and as a result, you have about 300 new top spots in their offices. So what we're seeing from a trend standpoint, Roland, is Senate is relatively flat. You know, there wasn't much change in the Senate. On the House side, we saw a slight increase in terms of diversity. So, for example, in the old House with the staff, about 14% of the folk were people of color. You know, the country's 38% people of color. These new members, 21% of the new House members, their top staff, are people of color. So 21% of the top.
So is that an increase? That's an increase.
Slight increase here.
Well, but also keep in mind, you also have more people of color who are Democrats.
Yeah, that is true. Although even among Dems, the old number was about 25% of their top staff were people of color. In this new class, 29% of the new Democrats are people, you know, their top staff is people of color. So it's a slight increase. Certainly not up to 38% like we'd like to see, and so certainly some much more work to do.
What do you attribute that to?
Pressure?
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I think disclosure and pressure, we just have to keep...
But you're undercounting, though. You said you'd love for it to be higher. Well, you've only had a slight increase, but you've had a huge increase in diversity in the House. So why aren't those numbers matching the increase in the House?
Right, and the increase in diversity has largely been in terms of Democrats. So remember when I said that number went from 25 to 29? A lot of that diversity before was CBC members and CHC members, really CBC members. Like white folks, their districts, white Democrats, their districts on average were 37% people of color, and yet only 8% of their top staff were people of color, right? So white Democrats are really the offenders. We haven't broken it down yet to figure out the white Democrats in the new class, how are they doing? That's something we got to look at.
But also, Malik, you've been experiencing something also interesting because you've been going to these Republicans trying to get black Republicans to apply for these jobs, and you've been having a problem.
Yeah, I met with the chief of staff and the staffing director on the Republican side for my home state senator. Senator, can't remember his last name.
Damn.
Oh yeah, Mississippi. I can't remember his last
from
name.
Mississippi?
Absolutely.
Cindy Hyde-Smith.
But in addition to Cindy Hyde-Smith, I also met with the office of the Republican senator there, the male senator there as well. And we talked. One of the things that we talked about was staffing. You know, I went in talking about diversity and staffing in their offices, and so I have gone about myself, you know, just on my own, just reaching out to people, just telling them about the opportunities. I haven't had I haven't had really any positive feedback on that. There could be several reasons for that, because there have been efforts before to pool resumes, and they don't go anywhere. That could be the reason. Part of it is because I'm a new Republican, so I don't have the same, you know, maybe I don't have the same trust, but I know you have something.
I just want to say something that's happened in the Senate that's largely, I think, stimulated by the presidential race, right? When we looked at the numbers on the Senate side before, there were 2 black top staff who were Republican and only 1 who was a Democrat, right? Only recently have Democrats pulled ahead of Republicans in the terms of top black staff, right? So recently, on the Senate side, Gillibrand hired a top chief of staff who's black. So did Elizabeth Warren. And really in the last year, we have had 3 black chiefs of staff on the Democratic side. Before that, we didn't have any.
Now, let me explain this, okay? So the folks who are at home watching, and you're like, okay, this is all inside politics. This has absolutely no bearing on me whatsoever. Do you understand? That's an absolute lie. To understand politics, you have to understand staff plays a huge role when it comes to policy, when it comes to positions and how certain decisions are made. If you go back to the Supreme Court case involving Muhammad Ali, when the Supreme Court initially was going to rule against Ali when it came to him choosing not to go to Vietnam, it was a clerk who actually convinced Supreme Court justice to change his opinion. Staff is crucial in this space, but not just when it comes to that. You have to think broader and down the road. When you talk about Washington, D.C. staff, these are the people who are going to, in the future, run for a political office, whether it's Congress, whether it's state legislators, city councilmen, county commissioners, governors, whatever you want to call it. Second, these are the people who are also hired in critical corporate America positions. And so when they leave Washington, D.C., they get hired in corporate America, in public policy shops, to become lobbyists. When it comes to PR and government relations. And so what happens is, when you leave a congressional job, all of a sudden you get hired to run somebody's entire office or division, guess what? You are now hiring 10, 20, 30, 40 people. And so if we have more African Americans in these critical positions as chief of staff, legislative director, communications director, that's where people are tapping for other jobs in corporate America. And so you can't just think just these jobs in Congress, in the House, and the Senate. You have to understand the impact that goes beyond that. Spencer, real quick.
Just also these commissioners and people who are appointed to positions. Stephen Breyer, Supreme Court Justice, you know, key Senate staffer here. You know, basically people understand the process so they know how to get nominated, and know how to get appointed and get through the process.
All right,
so
folks.
Yes.
This is Black History Month, of course, and of course we have a new history maker out of North Carolina. Cheri Beasley is the new Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court. She was named to the post today by Democratic North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper. She becomes the first black woman to hold the position. She was formerly an Associate Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court. When Cooper appoints her replacement, there will be 6 judges appointed by a Democratic governor and 1 appointed by a Republican governor. Now, let me also explain to you what happened. The Republicans in the legislature in North Carolina, they have been so nasty and so despicable how they have led. They tried, when the Democrats got a 4-3 majority in the Supreme Court, they then tried to take all the power from the North Carolina Supreme Court, give it to the court right below them. That was thwarted. The reason this position opened up, because it was a Republican who resigned in order for the governor to be able to appoint a new Supreme Court justice. Because even some of the Republican judges in North Carolina have been ashamed of what the Republican legislature has done over the past several years. And of course, again, this is also what happens when you vote, because these things also matter.
All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
All right, folks, calling all HBCU alumni, students, and leaders. Enter the Ford Motor Company HBCU Mobility Challenge and win $25,000 for your school. Building on their long-term support of HBCUs, Ford is looking to improve mobility in HBCU communities through innovative solutions. The winning program will receive a grant of up to $25,000 to implement their proposal. The deadline to apply is March 31st, 2019. Go to FGB.Life. That's FGB.Life. That's the website right there. FGB.Life for more info and to apply. That's for Scott, who sometimes can't pay attention. Ford goes further in our community.
Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.